Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Rashawn Green. I'm a current student here at Scotch Franchise School, and we all know we didn't come here for me. Here I have with me, if you didn't know her already, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Now, personally to you, Senator Warren, I'd like to extend my deepest thanks and my sincerest thank yous for taking the time out to come and review our environment and just see what we have to offer, and I really do appreciate it. When they told me I was doing this, I said mentally, I cannot do this. I said it. But look where I am.
Oh, you good? All right, so let me say hello to everyone. Let me thank Superintendent Champagne. Thank you very much for the warm welcome and for the meaningful prayer. Appreciate it. And you're doing a great job here, Rashawn. I think this is pretty fabulous. And how about if quickly we go around the room so everybody knows who all's sitting here? Can we just do that for everyone so everybody knows who's here?
Okay, I'm William Johnson, pastor of the Talcott Missionary Baptist Church, Summerton, South Carolina.
I'm Detrice Rivers, Summerton, South Carolina community activist, and I'm a graduate of Scotch Branch High School.
That's right.
Hi, my name is Sherry East. I'm a high school science teacher. I taught 27 years in South Carolina, and I'm the current South Carolina Education Association president.
Good morning, my name is Detrice Brown. I am also a native of Summerton, South Carolina, and a graduate of Scotch Branch High School, and I'm the current District Teacher of the Year.
Yes. So I'm just going to say a word to get us started, and then Rashawn's going to do all of our facilitating the conversation. I want to start by just saying I was born and raised in Oklahoma, and I've known what I wanted to be since second grade. I wanted to be a public school teacher. And my family didn't have much. By the time I graduated from high school, my family couldn't afford to send me off to college. I have a pretty bumpy story about I got a scholarship, and then I fell in love, and I got married, and I dropped out of school, and thought I'd lost the dream. And then I found a commuter college that was 45 minutes away. We were living in Houston, Texas at the time, and it cost $50 a semester. And for a price I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job, I got to finish my 4-year diploma, and I became a special education teacher. I had 4 to 6-year-olds. I loved my babies, but the story has more twists and turns. By the end of the first year, I was clearly expecting a baby, and the principal did what principals did in those days. He wished me luck, hired somebody else for the job. So I'm home, I got a baby, and I end up deciding I can't get a job, can't do anything. I end up going to law school. Public law school, by this time we're living in New Jersey, $450 a semester, baby on hip. Graduate from law school with another one on the way. Took the bar, practiced law for about 45 minutes. And went back to my first love, which is teaching. And I spent pretty much my whole life teaching in law school and teaching about what's happening to America's families. Why are working families finding the path so much harder than generations ago? And why, for people of color, is it even rockier and even steeper? Why is America's middle class being hollowed out? So that's what I spent most of my life working on. It's a longer and more complicated story about the financial crash, and Barack Obama asked me to help him when we set up a consumer agency, and so I worked in the administration. The Republicans pre-rejected me to be the permanent head of the agency, and so President Obama said, go back to Massachusetts and run against that Republican senator you've got. I got to say, nobody thought that was a winning proposition. I started out down 17 points, beat that guy by 7 points. So took that seat back. And spent a term as a senator. I'm now at the beginning of my second term. But when I made the decision to run for president, for me, it's all about opportunity. Who's going to get it in America? And whether or not we're going to be in America where opportunity just keeps going to a thinner and thinner slice at the top. Whether we're going to be in America that just says opportunity, oh man, there's plenty of it if you're born into privilege. But if you're not born into privilege, there's not so much opportunity. So I had an idea that what we ought to do in this country is a 2-cent wealth tax. Your first $50 million is free and clear. I know that lets you relax a little. But your 50 millionth and first dollar, you pitch in 2 cents. And 2 cents on every dollar after that. And that money goes directly into our children. So we do a 2-cent wealth tax in America. We can provide universal child care for every baby in this country, age 0 to 5. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old. We can stop exploiting the mostly women, mostly black and brown women, who do child care in this country and raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher. We can put $800 billion directly into our public schools, federal money on top of the state money. We can make technical school, community college, and 4-year college tuition free for every one of our kids. We can expand the Pell Grants so low-income kids have a real chance at college. We can put $50 billion into our historically black colleges and universities, really level the playing field, and we can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it, and start to close the black-white wealth gap by about 20 points when we do that. So this is the heart of why I'm in this race. And I'm so grateful to have a chance to be in a public school, such an important public school historically, and a public school that's on the ground every day, trying to make a real difference in the lives of kids. It's an honor to be here with you to share this discussion with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to the guy of the hour. Rayshawn, have at it.
Okay, so excuse me, I'm very forgetful, especially now, seeing as I'm intensely nervous. So my questions have to be transcribed. So my first question is for you, Mrs. Rivers. Can you talk about your experience going to school and why the people of Summerton signed on to the Briggs lawsuit?
Well, that was a very long time ago, and I was in the middle school at Scotts Branch when 1949, when the petition for equalization of schools started. And the reason it started was there was a bus transportation case filed in 1947. And when that did not go anywhere, the people of this county and Summerton had to decide whether they were going to stop there or whether they're going to keep going. Their decision was, we must keep going, because there was too many things wrong with the schools. They said schools were equal. They were not. And our schools had no running water in buildings, no toilets in the buildings, no heat in the classrooms, none of that. It was just too many things wrong. And that was the reason that Briggs versus Elliott became a case, because of all of those inequalities that were supposed to be equal. And we know how unequal equal was back then. So that was what we were going through here. And that's the reason our parents, I was a 13-year-old kid, our parents, along with all the other parents who signed those petitions, we knew that there was going to be trouble once that petition was signed. And right after that, every parent who signed that petition who were working lost their jobs, every last one of them. My dad was the last one to lose his job. He lasted 5 years after the petition was signed. The other people didn't last probably a year. And one tragic situation was, one family was sharecroppers on a plantation. The owner made them move on Christmas Eve. And then, to add insult to injury, blocked the road so they could not get out. Those were the kinds of mean things that were happening here in Summerton. But these people never let up. They knew that if they didn't do something, that we would suffer the same things that they suffered, and they wanted better for us. And that was the reason they did what they did. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for you, Ms. East, and I know you're a high school science teacher, I believe it was, correct? So what are the biggest challenges facing underfunded South Carolina schools today, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the students in South Carolina are suffering right now because we have a serious problem recruiting and retaining our teachers. We have seen lots of teachers leave the profession that are still certified teachers that have taken on other jobs. Last year alone, the SARE report said we started school with over 600 vacancies. So children started their classroom, started last school year without a certified teacher in front of them. So what we've seen, or when I asked first year when I said, why are you leaving, what's going on? And it's the pay and the working conditions. We are not paying our educators and paraeducators what they deserve. So it's not attractive anymore. 20% of our teachers are working second jobs. I myself had a second job for 23 years. I delivered parts at Advanced Auto Parts. So our teachers are now turning to other jobs, and we're praising the companies that are hiring them and considering, well, let's give them a tax break since they're hiring teachers. Well, how about we just pay teachers and where we don't have to work a second job? Like that's my idea that we do that. So because a happy teacher in a happy classroom that's not tired from coming in from a second job is going to do a better job for you. The other working conditions were our class size. The things we're working on are class size. Because of the teacher shortage, in quotes, it's not a shortage because there are people that would teach. It's just not attractive to them right now. You have higher class sizes. You can't build relationships with your students. You can't get to know them. You can't figure out all the things that are going on. So you're not getting to the heart of things, which could cause behavior problems, discipline problems, or another issue that we hear a lot about. Increased testing, everything's around a test score, and because of the testing, then we lose our planning for data meetings, overkill on paperwork, and the other big thing we're working on is the safe schools. We want every child to be able to have mental health counselors, the trauma-informed teachers, the training that we need to deal with the kind of things that kids are bringing to school today. So I would say our number one problem is keeping and retaining teachers in the classroom. And can I just note that she was his teacher in 8th grade? So worth noting.
Oh, I was
You're going to tell
planning it in my
stories?
head.
Are you doing? I want to hear the stories.
Oh, okay. So Mrs. Brown, she was not the easiest English teacher per se. She did not facilitate the process. She gave it to you in full. Homework every night, even on weekends. It seemed we had a different project every week. The most memorable being that Romeo and Juliet project. Okay, but Ms. Brown, I'm gonna let you off right now since we have Senator Warren. But what is the biggest obstacle to success for your students today?
First, let me give this disclaimer that the students here at Scotts Branch, they try really hard with what we have, and I think we do a great job of leading our students to success. And I just want to give that disclaimer before I get on my soapbox. But I really believe, just like Mrs. Rivers mentioned, that in the 50s, equal was not equal. It's the same thing in 2019. Equal is not equal. And because we live in this rural area with a small tax base, it all leads, everything is not about money, but it's about exposure. And sometimes our students lack the exposure because we lack the funding to give them that exposure. We ask students to build off background knowledge that they do not have. You can't ask me to picture a beach that I've never been to. And we take for granted taking our children on vacation every summer. There are some students that do not have that opportunity. And they look to the school as the beacon of hope. And as a school, we're busy teaching standards. There's nothing wrong with teaching standards, but there are some times where we have to teach the student. And in order to teach that student, we need funding in order to get them to a beach or get them to the theater or get them to things that help to build the whole person. Teach them how to go have a meal, because oftentimes business deals are made over meals. They're made on the golf course. And we need funding for things like that. And I really think that that's just the main obstacle. Our students are some of the best and the brightest. So if you give it to them, they'll get it. And just like our SCA president says, it's retaining young teachers, or just not young teachers, just retaining teachers. Because you come here in an area where we don't even have a grocery store. I have to buy things from Dollar General or either travel to another town. And I support that town, but that town's dollars don't come back to support my school. And so there's a discrepancy in that. And I'm going to stop talking, not because I can talk about this for a very long time, because I'm very passionate about the students that I teach. And these local areas that we support, they don't support us. They don't give us back, which they support the schools in their area, And so therefore, we need some business because we need some money so we can provide our students with the same exposure as a student that live in a different zip code in Lexington or other places. Our kids deserve just the same thing.
Good. Thank you.
To kind of backboard off of what Mrs. Brown said, this experience, it was very enlightening for me. I never thought I would be sitting next to Senator Warren. So seeing as I'm an aspiring law student, which you disliked, this is great. This is really great for me.
I got some hints for you.
Okay.
You want to give them now? You want to give them after? Okay, so my next question is for you, Pastor Johnson. How can the federal government help uplift schools and communities like Summerton and others in South Carolina?
Well, I've had the privilege of being in the Summerton area for some 37 years, and being a young man coming out of Sumter, which is not very far from here, one of the things that I see that's a problem is having the support system that a school needs to survive. Because even though we talk about going to college, not every student really needs to go to college. There are vocational programs to help them start up their own businesses. So while we're not trying to downplay going to college, we also want to look at what's going to benefit the student. What's going to be best in their interests. And had the privilege this for the past couple of years of being a mentor. And in this mentors program, we talk to young men, and I talk to them all the time about going to college, and they said, well, that's not for me. So I asked them, what do you like doing? One said he likes welding. I said, well, then you need to go to a welding school. Yeah. The other one says he likes electricity. I said, well, then you need to go and learn how to become a licensed electrician, So those are things that I think that should be, the federal government needs to send down a little bit more money to, a lot, to help us in the rural areas so that we can continue to provide rather than having to drive to another county to get these. Also, teacher pay. I have two daughters that are teachers, and the pay would help a lot. It would help out a lot in raising a family and taking care of things. Even the bus drivers and support staff needs more money. The bus driver problem stems from the fact when I grew up, the students were bus drivers. Okay, that was enough money for us living with our parents. So I'm wondering how it is that people now who are adults driving bus is getting enough. It's only morning and afternoons route. It's not like you're going to ride all day. So then we need industry into this area. The 95 corridor runs right through Clarendon County. We should have more industrial industries in this county, and we don't have them. We just don't have them. And with manufacturers coming in, that provides us with more taxable dollars to support our school. Clarendon County is a county that has always tried to carry its weight, but we just need a little help in carrying our weight, and it doesn't need to go to all of the metropolitan areas for our jobs, because as a pastor, the smaller my congregation gets, the more it becomes relevant that even my pay will one day start to decrease. And of course, there is housing. I'll wrap this up. In housing, We need help with housing because back in 2015 we had a 1,000-year flood that comes through and wiped out most of the homes, and they were not houses, they were just mobile homes. And of course, a lot of the mobile homes were rented mobile homes, and the owners of the particular resident did not replace it. So that means that a lot of parents who would be in the Summerton or Manning area is now replaced. They're somewhere else. And of course, again, I mentioned that makes the number of congregations dwindle, because who's going to get up on Sunday morning and drive 2 hours to church? That's a 4-hour drive. So we need better housing for it, and of course, health care plays an important role in our community too. I've attended funeral services of a number of individuals, some my parishioners, some of other churches who I just felt died too soon. When you start dying at 40 and 50 years old, and then you discover the problem was health care, that means that there's a problem. Not everybody goes to doctors, and it's not because they don't want to go to doctors. They can't afford to go to doctors, And the last thing, infrastructure, roads. I used to drive trucks, I had a second job, and there's a bridge coming across Lake Marion. It's called 95. A piece of the bridge fell out one day. We had to use one lane to come across there. And that bridge has been there since I've been pastor to the church. So that means it's been there for 37 years. I don't know how long it's been there before I came along. But, we could improve our roads. Amen. Yeah, amen.
Well, I do not want to abuse my time that I've been, given. So I will turn it over back to Senator Warren, for the closing remarks and any final statement she has to make.
Oh, good, thank you. That's terrific. These are really helpful, and I just want to say how much I appreciate you telling the story and also talking about what happens right now. I want to think particularly about the point that Ms. Brown made about thinking about where funding comes from, that when you're in a rural area, you don't have a big tax base. Your point about you go to buy your groceries, you're buying your groceries somewhere where those tax dollars are going to another school, and you're not mad at the other school, but there's no way to help your own school. You can't build your own community like that. And you watch this all around America, and my view is, if you're in America, you ought to have opportunity regardless of your zip code. And just because your zip code is in a rural community doesn't mean you shouldn't have a chance. It doesn't mean your kids shouldn't have a chance. It doesn't mean that your high school kids and your grade school kids, your little babies shouldn't have a chance to build something. So that's why when I think about this, I think about where the federal government could be a better partner. Not where it could come in and tell you what to do. Not where it could come in and say, oh, you got to run it this way, you got to do your school buses exactly like this. But where you could be a better partner by helping put more resources on the table for your children. So when I talk about that 2-cent wealth tax, just to give you an idea, it's 70,000 fortunes in this country that would be taxed. That's 0.1% of the families. And then that money goes everywhere. It goes to urban and rural. It goes to big city and to little towns. It goes to places where the needs are, where the schools are. And for me, it's a statement about who we want to be as a country. We're no longer a country that's separated from each other. We're all connected to each other. I mean, we're closely connected to each other. Whether it's on the internet, whether it's by phone, we're connected to each other, and we're connected to each other in terms of our futures. And the investment we need to make as a country is not just in some of our children. It's an investment in all of our children. And one way we can do that is to say we're going to put money into all of our schools, because it is a way to express, as you say, money's not everything, but it's a way to express our commitment. So just to say, on the K-12 part of this money, it would take schools like this, that are Title I schools, schools that are educating a lot of children from low-income backgrounds, and quadruple the funding available to them from the federal government. Because it recognizes, as you said, Ms. Brown, there's things you need to be able to do that you can't do without some money. You need to be able to take children who've never seen a beach to the beach. You need to be able to give them some of those experiences, to get them into big cities, to get them to see people who don't sound like them, don't look like them, so that they have a little broader range when they're thinking about what they like. I was thinking about your point, Pastor, when you said, talking to the young men you were mentoring, and one said interested in electricity and good, but it takes some exposure even to know that. You know, it takes some experience. It takes being around some people who've been there, who've talked about it, who've shown you something, who've had a science experiment and let you play with it, so that you know at least a little bit about the opportunities that are out there. It's a great honor to be here with every one of you today. I'm so glad to hear these stories. I'd love to hear every story that you have to tell, and I think we're going to stand up. We'll do pictures, selfies, anybody who wants to do that, and tell me a little bit about you and about this community. But most of all, I'm glad to be here with you, because what I see is this really is a chance coming up in 2020 to decide who our government works for. And that spark of hope that we can make in a democracy, we can make it work for us, is there. And everybody who shows up at a meeting like this, everybody who stays in a group that's active, everybody who says, I'm going to get people registered to vote and I'm going to turn them out to vote, is somebody who says, I still have that optimism in my heart that whatever it is that's gone wrong, that we could actually do better, and we could build something for our next generation that's better than what we had. And that's what pulls me in, and I'm just grateful to you for being here today with us. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
We actually do have some extra time,
Oh, we do?
so we can take 2 questions, a minimum at the 2, I'm sorry, from an audience member that can come up and speak into the mic and address your concern.
Anybody want to ask a question? This is the fun part. Sure. Yes, sir. They got you on mic?
Hello. Okay, I can speak loud.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Richard Kennedy. I own a state farm agency in Manning, South Carolina, and I'm also certified to offer the Affordable Care Act. I've seen many things happen in regard to health care, and my biggest concern is what the federal poverty level is, being eligible for Obamacare and Medicaid. There's a donut hole where millions of people are still not getting health care. I know you want to have
Medicare for all.
Right? Versus universal health care, we have a two-payer system. I've seen that it's going to be very, very expensive for Medicare, and also Medicare has some financial problems. And I know you're going to take it from the rich and give it to the poor, but I really wish you would drill down on that a little bit more on how we're going to get health care for everyone. Because with the high deductible plans, and even from a catastrophic plan with a 0 premium payment, it's still not affordable
Yeah.
for our young folks.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Richard, for the question, because you're exactly right. The problem we've got right now is even people who have health insurance. First part is health insurance is not affordable for everyone, even the thinnest plan. And the second part is even when you've got a health insurance plan, it's not covering people's full medical costs, and people can't afford it. Premiums keep going up, deductibles keep going up, co-pays keep going up, prescriptions that are not covered keep increasing. They tell you about the doctors you can't see, about the specialists you can't see, about the medications and the treatments you can't have. We've got insurance companies practicing more medicine than we do doctors practicing medicine, it feels like sometimes. And why? Because they make a profit every time they can say no. They make their money by taking in your premiums and then saying no on your coverage. So the idea behind Medicare for All is just to say healthcare is a basic human right. And we're going to get out there and fight for basic human rights. And the way we're going to do it is make sure everybody gets covered. And that they get covered not with a copay or with a deductible or with a premium, that everybody gets covered. And that includes dental care, it includes glasses, it includes hearing, because these are all health issues, and it includes long-term care, which is becoming a more serious problem in America. So then the question is, can we afford it? And look at it this way. Right now, we're paying for health care 4 ways in America. Federal government pays, Medicare, Medicaid, right? State government pays, Medicaid. Private employers pay if they have more than 50 employees, and you pay. You reach in your pocket and pay. If we don't do anything over the next 10 years, we just kind of stay on the path we're on, that last group, the you, the us, is $11 trillion. That's how much people are going to reach in their pockets and pay out. The average today for a family of 4 who has employer-sponsored health care is over $12,000 a year that they got to reach in pocket to pay, and the price goes up every year. So my proposal is to say you have the federal government keep paying what they're paying, state government keeps paying what they're paying, the employers keep paying what they're paying. They all just pay it into now what's called Medicaid. And this part we cover by raising taxes on the top 1%, and on the big corporations, and this third one, and enforcing the tax laws more so the cheats actually have to pay a bigger share of their taxes. We do those 3 things, we can cover health care for everybody. We can make this work. And I believe this is a fight worth having. There are just too many people, you talked about this, Reverend, who are dying too early because they don't have the lump checked out, because they don't get their blood pressure medication, because they try to skimp on their insulin because they can't afford it. That's not right. That is not the country we should be. We are the richest country in the history of the world. And yet, among the biggest nations in the world and the biggest economies in the world, we're the one who does the least on healthcare, spends the most money, and gets the worst outcomes. We're backwards in every part of this. So I've shown with the numbers how we can make this work, and I think that's what we need to do. And I think this is a fight worth having. It's a fight literally for the lives of the people we love, a fight for the lives of our neighbors, and a fight for the morality of our nation, and I'm in it all the way. I hope that's helpful. Oh, can I say one more quick thing on this in South Carolina? I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt myself for 1 minute. By the way, you switch to Medicaid, Medicare for All, you don't go through the state government anymore. So it's not up to the state government to decide, oh, we're not going to let our folks get health care coverage. This one is straight between the federal government and you, the same way your Social Security check is. And I think that's an important distinction when you're in a place like South Carolina. All right, good. Rashawn, who are you calling on here? We got time for one more? Go ahead.
Oh, do you want to take? Oh, the mayor?
I have one question.
Sure.
I'm the mayor of Manning, but daily I work with early education.
Yes.
First Steps, we're a school readiness program. And I'm just concerned, everyone talks about K to 12 and beyond, but you know that brain development is most crucial from birth to 3. And we already have early Head Start, and I've been hearing some negative things about the future of those programs.
Yeah.
I just want to stand and advocate for early education from birth and on. And I just want to know your view about programs like First Steps, school readiness.
So thank you. Your heart beats with mine on this one. When I first put together the 2-cent wealth tax and figured out where we could spend it, literally the first thing I did is universal, meaning it's there for everybody. I call it childcare just because it's easy for people to relate to, but it's early childhood education. It starts with our babies, and it starts with all of them. It starts, I know you know this. We started school at 6 originally because we thought kids couldn't learn anything before then. That was the whole idea behind it. That's when public school started. We now know how much is happening in those first 3 years. And so this puts real resources, enough so that every child in this country can have early learning experiences, and then pre-K for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. You formalize it, but it's like Head Start, but it's for everybody. Because here's the thing, well-to-do parents, even if they've got a parent at home, even if they got a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, they're putting their kids in those experiences. They're putting their kids in those classes, right? Because they shell out for them because they know that it makes a difference. You want those babies in there, where there are people who are stimulating them in the right ways and getting them around other children so they can socialize, so they're ready by the time they go to kindergarten, so they have bigger vocabulary, so they've seen more of the world. But that's just not available if you can't afford it on your own. So this says, it's going to be available to all our kids. And again, the money comes straight to the communities. So it goes where the babies are. You talked about how we get money down into our communities. School like this wants to start an early childhood program, they can do it. Church wants to start an early childhood program, they can do it. You got to meet some federal standards. You got to have fire safety and bathrooms and teachers that are trained. But we can make this available in every community in this nation. Life-changing for our babies, life-changing for their mamas who can finish their educations, who can get good jobs, and life-changing for the caregivers, because built right into the budget for this is to raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in this country. That's our obligation, our investment in our babies.
Now, I believe that was the last bit of time we had for questions and concerns that we had to address. As far as anyone who wants to attend the photo line, we are lining up on the far left of the bookshelf where this young lady is standing, and that's where you can take your pictures.
Right. And Rayshawn and I are going to go talk law school for a while. So thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much.